Yo, what's going on everyone, Karma here, and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 build video. Today I bring you the Skulls of Terror build. This Terror build will revolve around one very specific anointment. After phase grasping an enemy, release Terror Skulls that deal damage to the grasped target. What this build will do is build around the anointment to make the skulls deal as much damage as possible, and then combine that with Ties That Bind, which creates one of the most powerful Ties That Bind builds that you have seen. So before I get into this video, if you found it informative or helpful in any way, a like rating is always appreciated, and if you want to subscribe for more content like this and help me get to 25,000 subscribers, that would be awesome as well. Starting off, here are the skill trees. Now let's talk about the weapons and equipment. For the weapons, it does not really matter what you have as long as you have a weapon with the phase grab skulls anointment and another one with the 300/90 anointment. The remaining two weapons can be anything you like, including a face puncher if you want to take advantage of the groundbreaker perk in the guardian ranks, which we all know is insane, especially with this build because we're constantly going to be hitting for billions of damage. What I would also recommend is you have some backburners and monarchs in your hand to deal with bosses. This is mostly a mobbing build, not geared towards bosses, but what's really nice about the skill trees that we chose is that we can easily turn this build into a bossing build by switching to a monarch and replacing the anointments on her shield and grenade to something that will help in bossing. Anyway, moving on to the shield. You can take any shield you like as long as it has the same anointment. After face grasping an enemy, Amara fires Terror Skulls at the grasped target, dealing 33,856. For the grenade, again, it does not matter what grenade you have, as long as you have the anointment that says, on action skill end, apply terror to yourself. So basically, we're going to be using our grenade to apply terror to ourselves. For the class mod, you want to take the Phaser class mod, because you will want to keep stacking do harm, which will increase your action skill damage. And for the artifact, again, it's up to you. For the passives though, try to take increases to cryo damage, since the skulls from this terror build or this terror anointment actually deal cryo damage, in case you didn't know. So now let's talk a little bit more about the build. First off, the anointment. In order for it to work, you need to be affected by terror. When you phase grasp an enemy, you will shoot 1, 2, or 3 skulls out depending on how much terror you have. You can actually stack this anointment up to 3 times in order to get 9 skulls at one time. So the way to stack it 3 times to achieve that 9 skulls max, you need to have this anointment on your grenade, your shield, and your weapon. However, that's super overkill, so I recommend you just run it on your weapon and your shield. Leave your grenade for that anointment that applies terror to yourself. But I will say, if you really want to try 9 skulls at one time to look cool, just get the anointment on your shield, grenade, and weapon. And make sure to also carry a face puncher with the anointment that melee attacks apply terror to yourself. Again, this is super overkill, but if you really want to, that's how you do it. Moving on, I want to talk about how to get the most damage out of the skulls. In case you did not know, phase grasping skulls deal cryo damage. I already talked about that. So that basically means that you can increase their damage by getting elemental damage increases or just cryo damage increases. This anointment also deals action skill damage. So any action skill damage increase will help this build perform better. This is why we are running Do Harm, Awakening, a Phaser class mod, and Avatar. Do Harm will give us a bonus to our action skill damage depending on the amount of rush stacks consumed. Awakening actually buffs Do Harm to give us 5.9% per stack consumed, and the Phaser class mod allows us to constantly consume those stacks of rush by fake grasping, which help us easily reach 99 stacks of Do Harm. And that means that our action skill damage will be increased by 584%. And the best part about this is that this 584% increase is going to affect the skulls from the anointment and Ties That Bind. That is why everything affected by Ties That Bind insta-dies in this video. And this is not it. I already mentioned that the phase grasp skulls anointment deals cryo damage and action skill damage, but it also receives mayhem scaling. Absolutely insane. I bet you were not expecting this one. Yes, it receives a 3000% increase on Mayhem 10, which is 31 times the damage than on Mayhem 0. So basically, the playstyle you want to go for is this. You phase grasp a couple of times until you reach like at least 50 stacks of do harm. Then you make sure that you are holding the weapon that has a phase grasping Skull's anointment. Once you are ready, you can phase grasp an enemy with ties that bind. Then 6 skulls will fly out at the grasp target. And before that target gets hit by the skulls, make sure to switch to your weapon with the 300/90 anointment. And just look how everything insta-dies. Super fun build to use, I promise you. And now for some quick maths in case you are interested. This is how the build will work. We're going to phase grasp an enemy and 6 skulls fly at them. Each of those skulls deals 33,856 damage. And now let's do some math with some basic increases. We're not going to include guardian rank damage increases or extra elemental increases from our shield or artifact. Anyway, we have Tempest, so that's a 30% increase to that 33,856. Then we have the action skill damage increase from do harm of 584% at max. And then the Mayhem scaling, 3000% increase on Mayhem 10. That is around 9.3 million damage per skull. However, remember the first skull that hits will get the 300/90 anointment, which means that the first skull will actually deal 37 million damage and the other 5 will deal around 9.3 million. And of course, these numbers would change depending on what health bar you are hitting. So against red bars, it remains neutral. Against shields, we only do half of this damage. And against armor, we do 150% of this damage. So for now, let's just stick to it being neutral for the sake of the video. Anyway, this damage will take care of any phase graspable enemy in the game, including guardian takedown enemies, as long as you have sufficient do harm stacks. So anyway, then what's going to happen is that Ties That Bind will do its thing that it always does. We take 20% of that 37 million damage, then we multiply by the increase in Tempest of 30%, then get the action skill damage increases multiplied by 6.84. And then the 300/90 anointment, so we multiply by 4. This is assuming, of course, that the enemies that are being affected by Ties That Bind are all at max health. And finally, we get the Mayhem 10 scaling for Ties That Bind of 578%, so we multiply by 6.78. And this comes out to each linked target receiving 1.8 billion damage. Again, this is neutral and will change depending on your action skill element and the damage multiplier against different health bars. Say for example, we have shock as our action skill element and the enemies have shield. Instead of 1.8 billion, we'd be doing 250% of that damage, which is 4.5 billion. You know what's even crazier? That we actually only need 1 terror skull and 25 stacks of do harm and end up doing 13 million damage with the first skull, which might not kill the initial target, but the rest will take a neutral 235 million damage from Ties That Bind, which is more than enough to kill everything. Then the grass target will just end up dying after getting hit by the rest of the skulls. Also remember that after doing all this billions of damage, make sure to use a phase puncher with the 300/90 anointment and make good use out of a groundbreaker. Of course, this is optional, but still. And lastly, I wanted to go over a few more skills that bring something to this build. Sustainment will keep you alive, so make sure to take elemental weapons for that lifesteal. We have Remnant, which carries overkill damage, double dips into elemental damage bonuses, receives Mayhem scaling increase of 600%, and double dips into our 300/90 anointment. Remnant will always hit for damage cap with this build. And that is all I needed to cover in this build. As you all saw by the gameplay this whole time, this build one-shots everything in the game. Obviously, Anathema has immunity phases, but each time it would bring her immediately to her immune phase. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to drop a like, as that would be awesome. And if you want to subscribe for more content like this and help me get to 25k subscribers, that'll be awesome as well. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.